All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Hoppy Huddle College Football Podcast. I'm Jake. Ed is back from injured reserve.
All right.
He's back and ready to go. And we're doing Week 7 reactions, and we have got a banger of a weekend this was. We've got so many great games, craziness all over the board. There was a lot of close calls and a lot of just crazy, unexpected, a lot of shenanigans happening in a lot of these games. Just kind of plays that you wouldn't expect to happen, and got a lot to talk about. So
Jake, I heard you tried to have a podcast without me the other night.
I didn't try. I succeeded to have a
podcast.
Yeah.
I heard the ratings were really down for that one. So
the ratings kind of apparently they were pretty good, but I don't want to brag.
I'm back trying to give this platform some life. We're ready to go and talk about a great day in college football. Man, what a day yesterday. If you had something to do, if you went apple picking, you went to a wedding, if you went to a party, shame on you, because it was a great day of college football.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing weekend of college football. We had some blockbuster matchups, just the kind of things that you had been looking forward to all year long. And I think we have to start in what is, maybe the preseason game of the year, and that is Ohio State traveling to Autzen Stadium, Ohio State at Oregon. And I mean, I was dialed into this game. I caught almost just about every second of it, and it lived up. A lot of times you get these blockbuster games, and they kind of, one team dominates, or it's kind of like a grinded out game. It's not, as engaging as you would think it is. But this lived up to the hype, the absolute maximum potential. It was back and forth the entire game. Offenses were going. They were making great plays. There was crazy college football shenanigans. There was some bad plays made by both teams. It was just one of those games where you were just locked in from beginning to end.
Yeah, number 2 versus number 3. Like you said, we've been looking forward to this since the schedule came out, last winter. Everybody circled October 12th on their calendar. And you just hope when you get to one of these games that the game actually lives up to the hype. And this one did. You want to start with your thoughts on the game? I've got thoughts, but why don't you start? Tell me what your reactions are to this game.
Yeah, so my reaction to this game is both teams kind of blew it. And let me explain here for a second. So essentially, in the first half, Oregon had a couple kicking mistakes. They couldn't get their special teams to work properly at all. I don't know what was going on. They couldn't. They missed an extra point, or but the holder messed it up, and they didn't make it feel good. It was just all kinds of craziness. And so they kind of like let some points slip through the cracks there in the first half, and then also they had this insane accidental onside kick where he just drilled a guy in like the stomach and then he dropped it. Like I didn't know that was a strategy, but apparently that's a thing that works. So Oregon kind of left some points on the board in the first half. They didn't. I think one of their drives in the red zone, they had left it as a field goal. They just left some points on the board in the first half. But the second half is really where Ohio State's mistakes kind of cost them the game. Obviously had the situation at the end of the game with Will Howard where he just didn't seem like he knew what the clock rule was and didn't have the urgency that was necessary in this situation. And we could talk about that final exchange in a second here. But I just want to say, I think Oregon looked like the top tier team. Oregon for a long time has been on they've been a national contender, but they've only been a contender. They've never actually ascended to the level where they matched dude for dude, talent for talent with these top teams. They've kind of schemed their way to the top previously when Oregon was good, right? And so this was the marquee showcase of Dan Lanning's Oregon. And Ohio State and Oregon went up against each other, and they looked like they had equivalent dudes, which is crazy to think about. But Oregon had the same level of athlete on the field that Ohio State did. And that's a testament to Dan Lanning's program building.
Yeah, it's off to Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. They certainly deserve to win that game. A couple thoughts. You're right. They've always been, I don't remember the exact stat, and I heard it this morning. They had never won against a top 2 or 3 team before in the history of the program. They had always been the one to come up short. So this was a big win just, to get that monkey off their back. I'll take you back to about a year ago when Dylan Gabriel was the quarterback at Oklahoma playing a big game against Texas, against Quinn Ewers. And you and I had talked back then, and I said, hey, I think Dylan Gabriel is going to get the best of Texas, and he did. And I also said that I didn't think that was going to last. I'm going to go on record right now. I think he played a great game, completed 67% of his passes, 301, and I think Dylan Gabriel, great game. I still don't think he's going to be enough to get him to win a national championship. I think
you don't think so?
I think he's just got a few. I don't know if he can repeat it consistently. I think he can come up occasionally for a big game. Can he do this 2 or 3 more times this year, which you're going to need to do? Now, people want to dog on Will Howard on this game. And yes, he made a late game mistake, at least 1, maybe 2. All right, let's give him that. But you know what? He completed 80% of his passes yesterday. Let's not go off. So what I was talking about a minute ago was I didn't think Dylan Gabriel could really repeat this kind of performance 2 or 3 more times to really win national championship. Will Howard, everybody criticized him for a couple of the late game mistakes, but he completed 80% of his passes, threw for 326 yards. He played a really good game. And I think you and I talked before the season, I think our biggest concern with this Ohio State team is the quarterback the right quarterback? And so, I think we're there, but I don't know 100%. So I still think we've got a couple of quarterback question marks. Are we going to see these teams again in the Big Ten championship? I don't know. I was kind of knocking on the door there. Penn State's going to have something to say about it. Ohio State, now they're kind of behind the wheel because they don't have the win. They've got a loss in the loss column. But we may see these teams again in the playoff. I'm still a little skeptical if Dylan Gabriel can repeat this now. But hats off to Oregon. They deserve to win. I think my other takeaway from this game was, one, and we said this before the show, where's Evan Stewart been all year? That was the biggest shocker from them.
Yeah, absolutely. He was all over the place. They could not guard him.
And you said, I think you tweeted it yesterday, and I think you said it again for the show. You got to remember, he's a 5-star. He was a big-time recruit.
And he was like top 15 5-star, too. Like, he was a highly, highly rated recruit when he committed to Texas A&M.
Yeah, and so, Gabriel was finding him left and right. Tez Johnson. Gabriel had a great game. But I think what was probably just as shocking was I was a little disappointed in Ohio State's defense. I would have expected a better effort from this Jim Knowles-led defense. There was something that wasn't right there. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if it's just they didn't have the right game plan. Maybe Oregon just had a better setup. I just expected more from this defense, especially in the secondary, to let those guys run free all day. I expect if they play again, you'll see some different looks, and Gabriel won't get a free rein.
And to be fair, I think people kind of dog on Dylan Gabriel because he doesn't have like the elite NFL arm talent, but he is good. He is a good college quarterback, and he's not just good, he's great at making like the right decisions in the game. He's experienced. He knows where to go with the football, and he can throw the deep ball. He doesn't have like the in the window zip that a lot of quarterbacks have, and you saw that a couple times in the red zone where it like bounced off the back of one of his players. But like he can stretch the field, and I think people forget that. And Dylan Gabriel he led the team and he played really well in this game.
But here's my issue with Dylan Gabriel. He looked like this against Texas last year. Then he goes out and lays eggs on other games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other problem with Dylan Gabriel is I just don't, if he was the quarterback that we think he's so special, why did Oklahoma give up on him? Why did they go with Jackson Arnold? Why did they let him go?
I don't know. I think Jackson Arnold may be a product of his situation where if you just don't have any receivers, you can't throw it into a window that doesn't exist.
But Oklahoma gave up on Dylan Gabriel well before they even knew they had problems with Jackson. And they thought Jackson Arnold was the answer. I guess
maybe Arnold is good, and Oklahoma just has no receivers, and so that's why they had to go with the running guy.
Maybe. I'm not willing to, Dylan Gabriel.
Also, coaches make the wrong decisions about quarterbacks in practice all the time.
That's true.
Even good coaches do that every year.
Well, again, I thought Dylan Gabriel played a great game, just like he did against Texas last year. He had a great game today. I'd like to see it repeated more often to get consistent before I'm willing to say they're my de facto are going to unseat Ohio State. Will Howard showed me enough yesterday to why I still think they're the favorite, along maybe with Texas and Oregon to a national championship. I would still put them on a neutral field today, and I still pick Ohio State. I think that crowd played a big difference in that ballgame.
slightly disagree. Will Howard, I don't think he was as snappy as Gabriel in like making reads and delivering the ball. He had great receivers, but that was kind of where he just threw the ball up to them and didn't really like it wasn't like, I don't know. Gabriel, I feel like, had to throw with more anticipation than Howard did, where he just kind of threw it in the general vicinity of his receivers.
He completed 80%. What do you want to complete? 85, 90?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you want to be perfect? I mean,
look, he was good. He was certainly good. And I just kind of think, remember, Oregon also is missing their best pass rusher as well. He's out for the game. And Oregon got pressure on Will Howard without their best pass rusher. What do we talk about in the preseason? This Ohio State is, you can't find a flaw at any position with the possible exception of the offensive line. Yeah. Now, one of their left tackle went down during the game. But even before their left tackle went down, Oregon was consistently getting pressure with their best pass rusher out. And it just makes me think like Ohio State's offensive line is maybe better than last year, but it's certainly not like elite. And so that's why I kind of would lean Oregon on a neutral field.
Well, and we're probably going to get a chance to talk about this game again, would be my guess.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Now let's talk about the real issue in this game. Can we break down this Dan Lanning timeout? I mean, the 10 to 12 player conspiracy theory.
What happened? Okay, yeah. So towards the end of the game, I'll just like set up here. So towards the end of the game, there's like 12 seconds left, and Ohio State is at like the opponent's like 48-yard line, right? And so they need about 10 to 15 more yards to get into field goal position. So they snap the ball, they throw it out route, it misses, right? It was yeah. But then what happens is they call
Oregon calls a time. 10 seconds left. Oregon calls a timeout.
Yeah, Oregon calls a timeout, and then the next play, Oregon has 12 men on the field. And what this does is when they call the penalty, it causes the clock to continue to run, and it runs like 6 seconds off, and then Ohio State snaps the ball, and they weren't prepared for it, and Will Howard wouldn't pay attention. Then he runs, and then the game's over.
No. You got it. So
do I have it backwards?
So they snap 10 seconds. They call a timeout. They snap the ball. They throw whatever. The penalty is called. So 4 seconds go off to 6 seconds. The penalty is called. But what happens is the time doesn't go back on. So Ohio's basically, they got 12 men on the field to basically stop any big play.
Any big defensive play, yeah.
So basically, they took a penalty on purpose. The theory is they took a penalty on purpose.
We're not sure.
For 5 yards.
It's kind of unclear.
For 5 yards, because they were willing to trade the seconds off for the yards because they didn't really.
Because 5 yards didn't matter.
It didn't matter. And so if it is, Dan Lanning is a freaking genius.
I'm not sure if it was on purpose. It might not have been.
I don't know. Go back and watch it. You saw that thing I sent you from Twitter. Go back and watch how all the movements. It looked awfully like Dan Lanning was planning that.
Yeah, that's a lot. If it is, that's a lot of situational math that you have to do in your head extremely quickly. And so congrats on them for that. But I mean people are going to be mad about the rule, but like, let's be real, the situation where a penalty isn't worth it almost never comes about in a game situationally. So like it's pretty rare that this would happen again. So I don't know.
The fact that if that's true,
that's awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's crazy. But I mean, there are people, and that idea is definitely floating out there. Of course, it's not the only conspiracy theory on Twitter. So we'll leave it.
Well, you know who would have loved to have had Dylan Gabriel as their quarterback this week? Oklahoma, because that was not good. Now, maybe Dylan Gabriel might not have been able to do very much because Oklahoma's top 5 wide receivers. Again, we keep saying this. Oklahoma's top 5 wide receivers are out. Top 5.
Hey, Jake, Nacho Man 57 wants to go back to that rule for a second in the Ohio State game. Could that lead to a rule change? I just don't know how you can change the rule because it's
you can't add the seconds back on the clock. That you can't. That's not how.
I mean, I guess you could in the final 2 minutes. You could say if it's a 12-man penalty on the defense, you could put the seconds back on.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that then they get to run a play.
But it was on the defense. Why wouldn't you offer to get the time back?
But here's the thing: that if that's true, you get to run it's not a dead ball foul, right? They still run the play, right?
Well, they ran the play, but what if you take the penalty?
But then the problem is, then you have the ability to run a play with 0 time penalty, and I don't think that it'd be like if offsides gets you, unless you rewind the clock. It doesn't make. I don't know.
It's a mess.
It's interesting,
but
it's craziness. But
yeah, all right. Well, let's go back to the team that could have used Dylan Gabriel. Let's talk about the Oklahoma-Texas game.
Yeah. Oklahoma-Texas was a very interesting first 8 minutes. And then from there on, it was just a beatdown, just a destruction of body and spirit of Oklahoma. The first 8 minutes, it seemed like, hey, Brent Venables, they're cooking stuff up. They're getting chaos, getting turned. And then Oklahoma had 2 possessions inside the red zone and turned it into 3 points. And they turned the ball over. And then once that happened, you were kind of like, oh, if they didn't score off this, they're in trouble. And then Texas scored on 3 straight drives, and they would then sat on the ball. And then they were done. They basically just flipped chew clock on in the second half. Texas did, and they just obliterated Oklahoma. It was not even, wasn't close. They didn't feel like they belonged in the same field. But to credit of Oklahoma, their defense is a top 10 unit in the country. Absolutely, their defense is. The problem is that Oklahoma's offense can't score at all. Holding that Texas offense to what, 27 points, I believe? Or no, 34.
34.
It was like 27. It's at 34 points. Holding that Texas offense to 34 points, it is an accomplishment. It's pretty good. And the problem is they just couldn't. There was just no way they were going to score anywhere near 34 points. Michael Hawkins wasn't really good. It's hard to judge how good he is as a passer because there are 0 open receivers on every play. There just aren't any. Like, you look down in the field in the coverage, and there's just no windows. So you either have to have Tom Brady's ball placement or nothing. That's it. There's no way to get open receivers. People are wanting to switch back to Jackson Arnold. I get why they didn't, because Hawkins gives you that ability to run the ball, and that's at least something you can get going on offense. But Texas kind of just were like, okay, we have better. Your wide receivers are bad. We'll one-on-one them with our corners, and then we're just going to stop you from running the ball. And they did. Again, Oklahoma's O-line also not incredibly healthy. I think they're still missing a guard. And so it's just Oklahoma has just been obliterated by the injury bug, and it kind of has destroyed their season. So,
yeah, this was I was not on the podcast the other night. If I was, I would have told you, please lay the points with Texas. This will not be close, and it didn't turn out to be close.
Yeah.
With Ohio State and Oregon, we saw what I think are 2 of the top 3 teams in the country. The third team is clearly Texas.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was not, people talked before this game. I listened to people saying, it's a rivalry game, Oklahoma's defense. And I kept saying, are you paying attention? Oklahoma can't score. I don't care. I mean, there was no way in any scenario that they were going to score enough points to battle Texas. Now, like you said, it was interesting for about 8 minutes. It looked like it just took Quinn Ewers coming back off an injury. It took him a little while to get warmed up. You know, it's like a car in the wintertime. You go out and start it up. You can't just run it right away. You got to kind of let it roll up a little bit. Once it did, it looked like they started cooking. And it looks like Texas didn't even have to cook that hard yesterday. I mean, they just didn't have any problems with Oklahoma. And then they got the lead, and you knew at that point, halftime, this game was over. Jake, as you know, I'm like you. I'm watching multiple games. We had 3. Your brother and I had 3 screens going. And at immediately halftime, I said, let's move this game to the small screen. And he wanted to go, why? And I'm like, because this game it's
over. Yeah. No, I was off this game by halftime for sure. So I didn't watch any of the second half.
The small screen, we checked in on it, but there was no point at that. They didn't score any more points. And so I think Texas, and in the second half, I really didn't see much of the second half because we kind of looked at it occasionally. But my guess is this team is now focused clearly on this week with their matchup with Georgia. This is their biggest game of the season. Texas really is this game coming up. And I think this is their chance at home to really cement their place as the number 1 team in the country. I mean, they've beaten down their rival. They've gone on the road to Michigan. A win against Georgia, in my mind, clearly cements them as the best team over top of Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah.
They looked the part. Ewers got back in this game on purpose so that he got some work for the Georgia game. All signs are pointing positive in this direction for this matchup. And if I'm Oklahoma, again, I think you're right. You feel good about the defense. You feel like good about what Venables does, but you've got to solve this offensive problem that injuries have caused, that the quarterback's young, and it may not be solvable this year. You got to get to 6 wins to get to a bowl, and I'm not sure that's happening with his offense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Oklahoma because, I mean, with that defense, if you had a competent offense, you could put together a really good team. But no receivers, there's just not a whole lot they could do. But that was not a very exciting game. Didn't watch any of it in the second half, obviously.
Well, would you agree with me? We think we have a tier one of those 3 teams in the country.
Yeah, the first tier in college football is very clearly Texas, Oregon, Ohio State. And I think in that order, in my opinion. But
I think we'll see what Georgia does this weekend. I mean, Georgia just gets close to that tier. And if they go out and beat Texas pretty well, maybe they get back on that tier.
Yeah, the tiers are Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. A small jump, Georgia. A large jump, everyone else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Georgia. Alabama even though Alabama beat Georgia, we can dissect Bama all day long. They're not anywhere near that.
Bama just had a really good game script for about 2 quarters against Georgia.
Half a quarter, yeah, that's that. So, do we want to talk about Bama now, or are we going to be,
I mean, we can talk about.
I mean, that was an entertaining game.
It was an entertaining game, and man, USC, South Carolina, not USC, excuse me, had multiple opportunities to win that game, and they just couldn't. Lenore Sellers, if he just makes that pass at the end of the game, then we're tied up and we go to overtime. And I don't know, South Carolina, their defensive line is legit. They are really good. Like, there's no argument about it. They are an elite defensive line.
I think the front seven's really good. Not just
the front side. Yeah, the linebackers are good too.
I think the front seven's good.
Yeah, and so I mean, South Carolina is like, it's as if you put 6 high blue chip players on an or otherwise okay roster, and so you get some positions where you just get insane performances, like the front seven, like occasionally from Nick Harbor occasionally, and Lenore Sellers making plays. And then you'll get sometimes we're like, why is this guy on the field? He doesn't belong with the rest. And so it's a very strange dynamic to have some insane players and then some lesser level players. I think South Carolina, I don't know. I just don't think Lenore Sellers is good enough thrower to
who they remind me of? This South Carolina team reminds me a lot of Shane Beamer's dad, Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech Hokie teams, where you had some really talented defenses, but you just didn't have enough offensive firepower to get past 8-4, 9-3, 7-6, against the big boys. And I mean, this feels like the same thing. Great defense, South Carolina, but when it really comes to it, do you have enough on offense to do anything special? Yeah, you can run the ball.
It kind of reminds me of Taj Boyd Clemson.
Yeah, Taj Boyd Clemson can't really
great defensive front, a running quarterback with questionable throwing.
Yeah. I mean, and so I didn't even think they'd be this close to Bama, honestly, only because I thought Bama would be mad, and 2, I think Bama offensively can be really good, but South Carolina did a pretty good job holding them. Bama had some mistakes, and it started to get me wondering what's going on there. I mean, we thought, a couple weeks ago,
I can answer that.
They looked really good against Georgia. Now, all of a sudden, we've seen 2 kind of clunkers in a row against teams that I don't think we think are the best.
Yeah.
Maybe this drop off to Saban is not just schematically; it's maybe more culturally than we think.
Yeah, I can tell you what's wrong with Bama. The problem with Alabama is that they don't have the greatest coach of all time anymore.
Yeah. Well, secondary has been something we've said all year, that's a problem.
That was true today as well. The secondary is very much a problem. But on a larger level, the problem is that you don't have the greatest coach of all time anymore. And the thing that made Nick Saban great wasn't that, it was that he won 6 national titles. There's so many things that make Nick Saban great. One of the things that makes Nick Saban great and different from other great coaches is that he never had down games. There was never a game where Alabama never lost to an unranked team while Saban was the coach after the first season, right?
Yeah.
Or a team that finished the season unranked, I think, is the
something like
that. But it's in a crazy stat. And the reason is because they just never They went into every week. They went in and were prepared to win the game. The mentality was there. Nick Saban's preparation was there. They were always at that level. And Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, but he's not the greatest coach of all time. And I think some of that drop off is maybe DeBoer just not being Nick Saban.
Yeah, I mean, this is coming off a Vanderbilt loss. There's no way a Nick Saban team would have looked like this at home against an unranked South Carolina team.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I just don't believe it. And you could tell me these players are young. You can tell me Ryan Williams is still only 17 and he should have been in high school. I mean,
there is some roster churn too we have to think about as well that we kind of glossed over because Ryan Williams.
But it's Alabama. There's still more blue chips there than there are in almost every other roster except for 3 or 4 in the country. You go up and down. They should be better in South Carolina, but it looked like South Carolina was the team that was taking it to them, especially late in that first half. Just a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So now if I'm Alabama, maybe did this get their attention? I mean, are they going to be able to go through the schedule? It's not out of the question. They could lose 2 more games on this calendar. I mean, LSU.
Yeah, I mean, they have.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a big fan of LSU, and we'll get to that game. But now all of a sudden, I'm like, that LSU team that beat Ole Miss last night might take it to Bama.
Yeah. I mean, they have that Georgia win in their back pocket, which is going to be really helpful for making the SEC championship game. Even if they drop another game, Georgia, they might lose to Texas, and then you'd be fine. I don't know, but Bama is not the Bama of old, and I think that's pretty clear by now. They're just another good SEC team.
So they play. I guess they play Tennessee this week, which we'll get to Tennessee later.
Oh, there's enough.
And then we'll get to that game preview later in the week in our preview show. But man, that's a huge game for both of those teams.
Yeah, I think we need to go out to LA and talk about what happened in Penn State USC. And that was a crazy game. That was a fun game to watch. That was a fun game to watch. A lot of insanity happened in that game. That was one of those games where you're like, this is college football. Who is doing this? Running up crazy formations. Andy Kotelnicki and Lincoln Riley are basically having an old-fashioned just duel between 2 genius offensive coordinators, and the other both defensive coordinators were pulling out crazy stuff to stop them. Like, for some reason, Penn State couldn't run the ball all day, and for some reason, USC struggled with the adjustments in the second half, and it was like a chess match between 2 people, and it was a great game, I have to say. And of course, you have to give a shout out to Atlee High School Tyler Warren, who just dominated that game in the best single season tight end performance in Penn State history. 17 catches, over 200 yards. He snapped the ball and caught the ball for a touchdown in the same play. He is being utilized properly in that offense, and he is going to be either a first or a second round draft pick in the NFL.
So, if you've been a follower of our podcast all season, we've been giving Tyler Warren a shout out all season long. So, Hoppy Huddle knows talent when we see it. So, first of all, let's get that out. Second of all, Tyler Warren, 70 catches. That just wasn't was that just a tight end record, or I think that was all reception?
Was it all-time receiving record?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
17 catches in the game, 224 yards. He snapped the ball, went downfield and caught it, which he wasn't because he wasn't. Normally, you can't do that, but he was not covered, I think, was the way the rule works.
Yeah.
That was a fun game. I mean, you're right. Tyler Warren's worked himself. He should be the Mackey Award winner when those trophies come out.
He should.
Name me a better tight end in the country. I can't find one. That's just not our bias, but he is playing outstanding.
Yeah.
He's their offense. I mean, Penn State.
He's their whole offense. Yeah.
He is. And
Julian Fleming had 2 good catches, which I have to say it's good to see him start to get involved in the game, actually. But
yeah. But and let's be honest, Jake. You have high school freshman English with Tyler Warren.
I think I had AP Euro.
Was it AP Euro English or AP Euro? Okay.
I think it was AP Euro. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. We're good. Yeah.
Shout out AP Euro.
AP Euro. Yes. All right. Anyway, no, this was a fun game. It was a lot of back and forth. USC got up 2 touchdowns, but you didn't think, okay. I didn't feel safe with that lead with USC. You knew that Penn State was going to fight back in the second half. They did.
Yeah.
And then they traded some field goals, touchdowns. Again, great performance for Penn State. First of all, coming across country, they got rid of the 2 time zone stigma that's been battling all the Big Ten teams. Lots of offense in this game, 518 yards versus 409. Drew Aller looked like finally a quarterback that we think he can be. This gave me some hope for Penn State that they may be more competitive in those upper tiers.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm USC, I know you're now 3-3. You shouldn't have lost the Michigan game. That was your own fault. You played Michigan and Penn State tight. Maybe one of those should have broken your way. I mean,
Shouldn't have lost to Minnesota.
I know Minnesota's the one you shouldn't have lost to. But I also go back to the overtime. And if you're watching this game, they were robbed in overtime. 2 straight plays pass interference. I'm telling you what, they were robbed. They were absolutely robbed. And then to put them out of field, they didn't. And then of course they didn't hit the field goals. So
yeah, yep.
But people, I think they're starting to get a little concerned out there about Lincoln Riley. I'm not concerned about him. He's a great coach. If you want to give up on him, I'm sure the University of Florida or other schools in North Carolina will be happy to take Lincoln Riley pretty soon. So go in and fire him. Other people will take him.
Yeah. Yep. And who else are they going to get?
Yeah.
No one.
I mean, seriously.
Exactly.
He's a great coach. He's had a couple of games. He took Michigan and Penn State to overtime. Both those games could have gone either way. Then
they finally have a good defense.
Or Michigan didn't go overtime. It came right down to the end.
Yeah.
The Minnesota game was one they shouldn't have lost. But they're going to be fine. And I think I just don't, I believe in him long term. So I don't think you need to panic yet, USC fan.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I think, should we touch on
what?
Where
do you want to go? Do you really want to go to the pain in Knoxville?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, I did not watch a ton of this game because it was on my fourth screen because there were better games going on.
I watched this game a lot. So
every time I looked over at it, just like the most, slam your head against the wall, dull football in the history of the world was happening in this game. So I'll let you speak to this, although I have a couple of comments.
But. Yeah, I mean, Florida had more first downs, fewer penalties, more rushing yards at one point, higher success rate, but the Vols were leading. I mean, come on. I mean, let me go to the first half here. They were 0-3 in the red zone, second quarter, turnover on downs, fumble at the 1, undisciplined penalty. I mean, this was classic Billy Napier. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're a Florida fan, my heart goes out to you because you're screaming at this. They dominated this first half. They should have been up 10, 14, 21 points in the first half. Tennessee was terrible. And I don't want to say Tennessee was terrible. Florida's defense was playing really well. They couldn't score. And that's partially because Tennessee defense is good. Partially it's because, Billy Napier twice went for it in 4th and 1, couldn't come up with a play design to get a first down. Decided to run it out of shotgun. The second time ran it out of a sweep. Come on. It is Florida committing dumb penalties, Florida not being in the right.
Yep.
It's the same thing for the third year in Billy Napier. And the fans have had it in Gainesville. They are done with this. They're done with this. The talent is there. DJ Lagway is so talented. Everybody can see it. The players are playing hard. There's talent on this roster. To go up to Tennessee, and we'll talk about Tennessee in a minute, to go up to Tennessee when you're a 2-touchdown underdog and play like you did shows a lot about this roster. But they're just making too many mistakes to give them a fighting chance at the end. It's time for a change in Gainesville, and it's going to happen here. It's just a matter of which week it's going to happen. I feel sorry for them. DJ Lagway showed again last night. He was running for his life at some points. Tough place to play, Knoxville, but he came in the clutch at the end, brought them, led them to a touchdown. And then here's where I get to at the end. They need to go. They need to kick an extra point to tie the game, or they go for 2. What is this about scared money don't make money? Okay, well, let me tell you what. Looks like scared money went for the extra point, and then, then they end up losing.
Yeah.
Just
shocker.
Beside that. Now, let me talk about Tennessee. I don't know what's going on there offensively with them. Now, we'll give some credit to the Florida defense, but that defense has also got tore up by Texas A&M and Miami. Tennessee clearly can run the ball, and they have a great defense. But something isn't right with Nico, and he hasn't quite progressed as I thought he would. He's either they don't have the receivers, or he's not doing – he missed – I know he missed at least one open guy I can recall, a deep shot down the field. Something's not right where they're not generating enough in the passing game. This does not look like Hendon Hooker in 2022. They're not generating enough offense all of a sudden when we're not playing an easy cupcake. So I have concerns that maybe they're not advancing as quickly as I thought they were. And this offense is only going to take them so far. We've seen they didn't get a lot in the Oklahoma game. They lost in Arkansas. Now Florida, a team which everybody's beating, they could barely beat. So I'm a little concerned going to the Alabama game. Alabama may as bad as we think Alabama's playing, Alabama may take it to them because Alabama can score points.
Yeah, but Tennessee's defense is also good.
They do. They can get after it.
And also, what do we know about Bama's secondary?
Yeah, but yeah.
My question, though, from at least what I saw of the game, it just didn't seem like the Tennessee receivers were getting any separation. I think we've known so far this year that Florida's secondary is not that good. They're pretty.
Yeah, that's my issue.
They were pretty exposed against both A&M and Miami. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, does Tennessee have a receiver problem?
Like, it may be, but Nico just hasn't been real impressive.
And he hasn't been great, but
whose secondary is better in your opinion, Florida's or Bama's?
That is a tough question. Maybe Florida?
I don't know.
But that's a problem that we're asking that question.
It is a problem, yes, for Florida. I mean, Bama, that we're asking that question.
Yeah.
Next week's game should be real interesting. I think the loser next week's game is all of a sudden staring into the abyss of going, oh, man, we got 2 losses. We may be out on the outside of that playoff looking in. Because
the loser of I'm going to go ahead and be definitive. The loser of the game next week will not make the playoff.
Well,
I don't think
with 2 losses, they cannot afford another loss. And I just don't know how that's going to. I think the losers, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that later this week on our preview shows.
I want to touch on the craziness that happened late night in Boulder.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh, this was an insane game. You always go to bed and miss these late night insanity games.
Man, I'm an old man. I can't stay up these 1:30 a.m.
Apparently, somebody was sitting in the booth. The Buffalo Wild Wings guy was sitting in the booth, just taking players out with the gun with the little Buffalo Wild Wings injury button.
Yeah,
because every single player on both teams apparently got injured in this game. Like Avery Johnson went out halfway through the game and then came back. Travis Hunter was out. Their other receiver, what's Colorado's other?
I forget his name. Yeah.
Colorado's second receiver went out of the game. Will Shepard got injured. Like it was. Oh, Jimmy Horn Jr. went out of the game. Yeah, it was craziness. The turf monster just kept getting people after people. I will say the ending of this game was nuts. Kansas State threw a pick that Kansas State was driving. They threw a pick that was returned like 50 yards that led to a Colorado score. And then Kansas State ended up scoring in like 3 plays on like a giant 59-yard game-winning touchdown pass. It was just craziness, pandemonium, just a insane game. Kansas State survives. And I think this is actually, Kansas State is set up in a really good position in the Big 12 now, because even though they have 1 loss, if BYU, not BYU because they lost to BYU, I guess, but if Iowa State ends up tripping up, Kansas State is in a good position to make that Big 12. Do Kansas State and Iowa State play this year?
I don't think so. No, I don't. I'd have to go back.
It'll be interesting to see if the tiebreaker comes down to that. If Iowa State loses, I do think there's a possibility. I know you're going to say this never happened, but a 1-loss K-State that doesn't make the Big 12 title game could sneak in as an at-large bid in the playoffs, especially if they keep winning like this.
You're right. I didn't think that would happen preseason because I actually thought these SEC teams were good. But now I think the SEC, as I said last week, is a bunch of hot garbage. I think it can happen.
I mean, who gets in a 1-loss K-State or 3-loss Tennessee?
Oh, Iowa State does play K-State. I forgot. That's the last game of the season.
Okay, yeah, then that'll be a really interesting setup because that could essentially be a play into the Big 12 title game. And if Iowa State loses, a 1-loss Iowa State could also get in.
There could. There's more chaos to be had in this conference, I'm convinced. But we'll get to. Well, look at Iowa State's schedule. First of all, Iowa State won again yesterday.
Yeah, they did. Iowa State, great win by them, by the way, going into West Virginia. West Virginia actually played pretty well in all of their games this year. West Virginia's a pretty good team, I think. Not like great team, but actually a decent team.
Well, West Virginia has been pretty good, and I mean they play well at home. But let's play out Iowa State. First of all, Iowa State, an impressive win. They're very business-like. They continue to just do what they need to do every week. Their schedule they've got over the tough part of their schedule. They've got UCF, Texas Tech at home, at Kansas, which is a joke, Cincy at home, at Utah, which without Cam Rising is not going to be difficult.
Or with Cam Rising.
Cam Rising, we're going to put him out.
If you want to talk about how he played in the game on Friday night.
Well, yeah. So I mean, Iowa State could really be undefeated and a top 5 team, 6 team, by the time we get to the final game of the regular season against Kansas State. So let's play this out. Let's say Kansas State can survive. They're playing on 1 loss versus no loss. If Kansas State wins, they're probably playing each other the next week in the Big 12 championship.
You're assuming BYU.
Well, that's what I don't know what BYU is going to do.
Yeah, you're assuming because BYU already beat Kansas State, and BYU doesn't play Iowa State.
No, they don't. I'm trying to find BYU's schedule. I can't find where's BYU all of a sudden. They're hard to find. They're slippery.
BYU got another good win this weekend. Just a quick touch on Utah. Cam Rising came in for Utah, and everyone thought it'd be his glorious return, and Arizona State just took it to him. The Arizona State quarterback. Hold on one second. Let me find it.
What's his name? I can't remember his name. The Arizona State. There's a team that we're not talking about in the Big 12.
Arizona State's only got 1 loss. They're 5-1 now.
Yeah, they're all of a sudden in the mixture.
Yeah, Sam Leavitt played really well for Arizona State.
He's the guy. He's the guy that, remember, Jaden Rashada got left and went to Georgia because Sam Leavitt got the job.
Yeah, because Sam Leavitt got the job. A little throwback. We had a play come in from Jeff Sims, who came in for a special package, which is something we haven't seen in a while.
BYU's schedule's pretty manageable. I mean, they've got literally, I don't see a game they can lose other than at Arizona State. So
yeah, which by the way, Arizona State 1 loss. They're contender too. People don't forget Arizona State. They've played really well. They have a tough defense. Kenny Dillingham is a good offensive coach. They scheme stuff open. Cam Scadaboo is a powerful running back. Love that name, by the way, Scadaboo.
Yeah.
So Arizona State is also a player in the Big 12 title race.
Now, see, here's the thing. The Big 12, we got 4 teams in the mix. They're devouring each other, and we keep saying, oh, they're just no good because they're each beating each other. See, they're all beating each other. We're saying, oh, they're so good because they're beating each other. Really? Come on. See, it's full. These teams are bad in the SEC this year. But never mind. We'll just go on our merry way. Don't pretend what you've seen on the sideline here.
Hey, I mean, are you really telling me that Kansas State and Alabama wouldn't have a decent game?
Yeah, they would have a decent game at this point.
I think that on neutral field, Alabama probably wins, but tell me Kansas State doesn't hang with them?
At this point,
I don't think so. With that secondary and that run, no. Lenore Sellers ran all over them.
Hey, speaking of sidelines, did you see Kirby, the video of him shoving the Mississippi State player?
Yeah, so I saw so many people being like, that's something. I mentioned this before, and I was like, there's a contrast here between how Kirby Smart runs this program. They've had a lot of cultural issues, off-field issues throughout the last 2 years, essentially, and we keep wondering oh, well, Kirby says he talked to him. He says it's zero tolerance for this kind of stuff. But why does it keeps happening? And we're like, well, yeah, there's bad apples everywhere, but it keeps happening at Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I think you might have to start talking about maybe this is on the Kirby and the culture that he sets in that locker room, because where this doesn't happen? A lot of other places.
No, it doesn't.
It's been a couple times with some transfers that have had some baggage that they've brought in, and you compare them to the other team, a couple miles away that takes no transfers. Who doesn't have this problem? Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson doesn't have this problem. So
yeah, I didn't like the video. I wonder what's going to come of it this week. It's starting to make its rounds today. If you saw,
I mean, that's got to be like a fine or something, right? Coaches can't just shove players.
Clearly shoved the player. At least what I saw.
Also, Mississippi State hung around in that game way longer than they should have. If you had that on a small screen, they were down. They were down 10 points with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
with the
ball. They hung around longer than they should.
So there was a real chance. Yeah.
Let's get to we got to talk about the other great game of the night, because we can't take this. We can't have a 2-hour program tonight, but let's talk about
Cal Pitt was a really good game.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ole Miss and LSU. And listen, I'm an old man. I'll admit when I was wrong, and I'm not going to admit that I was wrong about LSU yet, because I'm not. Okay,
can you admit that Garrett Nussmeier is a good quarterback? Can you?
I'm going to wait to the end of the season before I admit when I'm wrong about LSU. Okay, but I'm going to admit that I was wrong about Ole Miss. Ole Miss just isn't what I thought they were going to be. I thought they'd be better than this. I mean, Trey Harris was out, and I just would have liked to have seen Trey Harris in this game, because I think he could have made a difference. I thought Ole Miss was going to pull this out, and then somehow the miracle of Death Valley at night, all those people, they let them hang around. it seemed like in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss was in control, and they just let them stick around. And then crazy things happened in Death Valley in the fourth quarter. And sure enough, it happened, and LSU won. And now Ole Miss, there is zero room for error. They got 2 losses. They better win every other game, and that includes beating, I think, Texas and Georgia.
Look, crazier things have happened. Just ask 2016 Auburn.
Yeah. I mean, there's no room for error now in Ole Miss's schedule. They have to win everything else outright. LSU, give them props, man. Listen, that's why you have that home field advantage, and they took advantage of it last night. Nussmeier played well.
Can you say Garrett Nussmeier is a good quarterback?
Listen, Garrett Nussmeier, he's a good quarterback. He is no Jaden Daniels, and I still don't believe in this LSU team. I'm really still skeptical of them, but we'll see. I'm not going to admit I'm wrong about that yet.
Okay. We'll see.
Yeah.
We got some chat.
Oh, go ahead.
We got a chat saying do you have a rant about the Virginia game?
In Virginia, does Virginia just need to start every game down, score points, and then I watch that defense fold like a cheap tent from Academy Sports and Outdoors late in the game? My gosh. I mean, it's really hard because, I can't even begin to describe. That game was on a main screen. I was watching that very intently. What's worse is, did you see the beginning of the game, the crowd at Scott Stadium? I mean, it was embarrassing. This was a decent Louisville team coming in, and nobody's there. And that just shows you there's no fan support for this coach. Maybe a nice guy, don't know him personally, but this program deserves better. They deserve better fan support. I didn't think Calandria played terrible, but they just couldn't hold him at the end. I was reading our chat saying I was there. It was pitiful. Yeah, it looked pitiful on the television. It was terrible looking on the television to see empty stands like that. I mean, you felt like you were at a group of like a CUSA game on a Tuesday night looking in the stands. I'm not going to say anything more. Virginia's toast now. There's no chance at a bowl. Look at their schedule. There's not a team they're going to be favored on. There may be one more game they're favored on the rest of the year. So terrible events. But can we play this? Do we have any sad music that we don't have any copyright issues on to play?
I don't have any. I'm going to work on. I won't be able to do it this week, but in the future I'll try and get some sound effects. But
okay,
I don't have any right now.
Okay, well we ought to have. If we could play some sad music for our North Carolina Tar Heels. Play some watching those Tar Heels self-destruct late in the game against Georgia Tech. Good for the Rambling Wreck.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Georgia Tech, they're a good team. North Carolina?
North Carolina, not a good team.
Not a good team. That might be more of the truth.
Yeah, that job's going to open up, isn't it?
Mac Brown's going to ride off into the sunset, right?
And that's what's really going to suck is if UVA fires their coach and Carolina's job opens up. UVA is not going to get a decent candidate compared to Carolina.
Yeah. Yep. You're correct.
I mean, so what do you do if you're Virginia? Do you hang on to Tony Elliott another year?
You get a head start on the coaching search.
I don't know. Carolina's job will be attractive. I don't care what you say. They've got a lot of resources. It is a sleeping giant, and it will be an attractive job. It will not be as attractive as the Florida job, which should open up. We still don't know if Arkansas will open up. We don't know about Baylor. We still don't know if there's any others out there. It's going to be an interesting offseason, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Purdue, Illinois was a crazy game. I don't know if you saw any of that, but 50-49, just pandemonium, overtime game. Fantastic watch.
I didn't know those Big Ten teams could score like that.
Yeah, I had Illinois minus the points, and it looked like a lock at halftime, so I'm kind of sad that happened, but it was a good game. So, it is what it is. I think it is time. You know what time it is?
I think it's Ashton Gentry time.
It's time for our nightly Ashton Gentry glazing session because, oh my goodness. Let me just read you off some stats again. So, Ashton Gentry, the best running back in college football. He ran for 217 yards. First of all, this was an off night for him because he only averaged 7 yards an attempt, which is still higher than Bench him. Only averaged 7 yards an attempt, not his usual 10 to 15. He ran for 217 yards. He had 3 catches for 20 yards, and he had 1 receiving TD and 2 rushing TDs. He is on pace to break Barry Sanders. He's still on pace, but he is on pace to break Barry Sanders' all-time rushing record, which is insane considering that no one runs the ball like that anymore. Ohio, Hawaii. I watched some of this game. First of all, I hope the ref that collapsed it in the second quarter is okay. A ref had like a heart attack or something in the middle of the game,
goodness.
and they called an ambulance, had to pause the game. So I hope that guy's okay. But essentially, Hawaii said, okay, we're going to put 9 dudes in the box, try to run on us. And Boise State said, okay, so we'll pass a little bit until you get 8 in the box. And then we're just going to keep rushing. And even though, oh, no, he's not running for 10 yards in attempts, he's only running for 7. So 9 dudes in the box decreases his, not his yards per carry by like 3. He's still the best running back in the country. Here's a little fun stat for any of those who need some perspective on how good Ashton Gentry actually is. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are 2 of the other running backs in the country who we think are like the absolute, top level of the running backs, not named Ashton Gentry, in the country, right? Against Oregon, they combined for 24 carries, 139 yards, 1 touchdown, and 5.8 yards per carry. Not bad, just a pretty decent performance. Oregon has a good defense, that's understandable. Ashton Gentry against Oregon with a significantly worse offensive line. Ashton Gentry had 25 carries, 192 rushing yards, 3 rushing TDs, and 7.7 yards per carry. Yeah, he gave him the Heisman right now.
I don't want to hear that it's because he plays at Boise. He's unless things slow down, he's on track for the Heisman.
Yeah, it should not be a question against Oregon. By the way, with Oregon's better defensive lineman in. So Oregon's defensive line was actually better against Boise. Boise had a worse O-line than Ohio State. Like literally every way that you could compare it. There were 2 running backs for Ohio State, 1 for like every way that you could combine it. Ashton Gentry just blows every other running back out of the water. Yeah. Someone compared Ashton Gentry right now compared to the past 3 running backs that won the Heisman, and he's like 600 yards ahead of Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram at this point in the season.
Yeah, but they played for Bama, so they're special.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And Bama, and that was a different era where people ran the ball a lot more. Now we got these spread offenses. People don't run the ball as much. Like, it's just unreal. We are watching a generational, like once every 20, 30 years level performance from him. It's that level. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to watching this every week. I hope it continues to play out this way because it'd be nice to see a special story like this happen. Bro, give him some 7:00 games.
Yes,
he'll put every game starting at 11:30. Yeah.
Well, aren't they going to get a matchup here against UNLV here?
We got UNLV this week, which should be a really good game. I hope they get a good time slot for that.
Okay. Well, I think that about it's a great way to wrap up our show for tonight. We'll do a preview show later this week. We got some big matchups, particularly in the SEC, coming this next week.
Yeah, should be a great week coming up. Preview show, it may be a problem because I may be traveling.
That's right.
We might be able to do a preview show on Monday night. We'll see.
You want to do it? Okay, Monday. I could do Monday. Oh yeah, tomorrow night.
Can we do tomorrow night?
Yeah, I can do tomorrow night. Yeah.
All right.
I got to do a little homework early. I'll do my homework earlier, but we'll be ready.
Yeah. Preview show on Monday night because traveling issues. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube. Like the video. Follow on. Fine. Yeah. You can fill in for me.
Reed. We'll have you a special guest. So
follow on X and Thanks so much for watching.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Good night, Zoe, Vera, Abby. Good night, everyone.